got to get the chair, get him out, get him in the chair, get him out of the chair, bring him up here and stuff like that. So,
Hold the door while he gets to the chair if nobody's around.
yeah. So ever since he lost, like, he had a neuropathy or whatever in his knees, and then I guess he traveled to his feet or something like that.
Brutal.
He lost his balance, and he kind of crashed a couple, on the floor, not driving or whatever. And he just, I guess if you don't have any feeling, it's just like you don't know where you're walking. And
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't imagine what that's like. So.
I have it in my arms, and sometimes you can't feel anything. It's
Okay.
weird. It comes and goes, but I have crushed vertebrae. That's causes that.
Yeah.
So.
A lot of people at work had that because of repetitive motion with the, they were basically typing, keying in and stuff like that. So they do this for 6-8 hours, and it's like, and then having their hands in a certain position.
Carpal tunnel.
Yeah, the carpal tunnel on it, and it's like. Is it 6?
Yep.
Okay, it is now 6 o'clock, and I would like to call the Board of Adjustment meeting to order. If we would rise, say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to have the swearing-in process. Anybody wishing to speak at tonight's meeting, please rise, take the oath from the clerk.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we have an open forum. Anybody wishing to speak on any items except for the items that are on the agenda, please raise your hand. Be noted. There are none. The open forum is now closed. Thank you. I'd like to have the approval of the minutes dated June 26, 2024.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carried all. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to have a reading from City, variance 2024-06.
Hello, Tatiana Childress, City of Oldsmar Planning and Redevelopment Director. So this is variance 2406, building height and parking variances for 760 Brooker Creek Boulevard. The subject property is located north of Brooker Creek Corporate Center and is currently vacant industrial land. The property has a zoning designation of the M1 Limited Manufacturing Zoning District and the land use designation of the Industrial Limited. The vacant site includes a stormwater pond, which was permitted as part of the Development of Regional Impact Project. And this variance includes a site plan, or the variances are part of the site plan. So the proposed site includes a 68,000 square foot warehouse in the M1 zoning district. This is a spec building with no specific tenant at this time. But all future uses will be consistent with the M1 zoning district, and the variances requested include the increase of the building height from 35 feet to 46.5 feet, reduce the regular parking spaces from 136 to 130 spaces, decrease the ADA parking spaces from 7 to 6, and reduce their width from 15 to 12 feet. Also reduce the regular parking spaces width from 10 feet to 9 feet. Here we have the site plan. So outlined in light orange is the proposed building or warehouse, and then the parking. You can also see the associated parking here and the stormwater pond. The variance requests were reviewed against the 10 conditions outlined in section 3.17.3. The special circumstances or conditions applying to the structure or premises in question are peculiar to such structure or premises and do not generally apply to other structures or premises in vicinity. So reducing the number of regular parking spaces from 136 to 130 and the number of accessible parking spaces from 7 to 6. The City of Oldsmar requires 2 parking spaces per 1,000 square foot of warehousing manufacturing, but based on the ITE guidelines, this warehouse use requires only 79 spaces. and manufacturing uses would need 102 spaces. The proposed 130 spaces exceed the both of these requirements, and the Florida Building Code only requires 6 accessible spaces. The variances for the size of accessible parking spaces, the city of Oldsmar requires accessible parking spaces to be 15 feet wide, but the variance seeks to reduce this to 12 feet for consistency with the Florida Building Code, reducing regular parking spaces width from 10 to 9 per section 15.8.3 of the City of Oldsmar Land Development Code. Regular parking spaces are required to be 20 feet long and 10 foot wide. The requested parking width variance would reduce the overall impervious for this new site development. Next, we have the building height variance. So the city's new method of measuring building height is from the design flood elevation. The site's topography and previously permitted pond necessitates a higher finished floor elevation of 18 feet. Adding that to the overall height, and modern warehouse projects increasingly require clear height of 28 to 36 feet to meet current operational needs, as seen as recent studies and provided by the applicant. Similar projects like the recent project, Herod Properties Development, have been recently approved with clear height of 30 feet and a total roof height of up to 42 feet. This variance only slightly exceeds the district's height limit from 35 to 42 and maintains consistency with other modern warehouse design. Granting of the application is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of the property right and does not merely serve as a convenience for the applicant. So the applicant is requesting height and parking variances to build a warehouse with the interior 30-foot clear height to meet modern market demand. The parking variances will also reduce the overall impervious area, fitting the intent used for the manufacturing and warehousing. And the request is not the result of any action by the applicant beforehand. The variance requested is the minimum variance that would make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. And the request is not based on the applicant's desire to secure a greater financial return. The applicant proposes a warehouse with the interior, again, 30-foot clear height, aligning with the recent trend where most construction have clearances of 28 to 36 feet. And granting of the variance will not be detrimental or injurious to other property or improvements in the neighborhood in which the property is located. Approval of the height variance will not harm surrounding properties. The parking variance will reduce the impervious surface and preserve green space. And the site plan also includes extending utilities to benefit the public. In summary, the application will support the establishment of a new warehouse in a manner consistent with the development pattern of the surrounding area, meeting all of the 10 conditions for the variance request. Based on the application meeting Land Development Code Section 3.17.3, staff recommends approval of the variance request to increase the building height from 35 feet to 46 feet, to reduce the number of regular parking spaces from 136 to 130, to reduce the width of ADA parking spaces from 15 to 12, to reduce the number of ADA accessible parking spaces from 7 spaces to 6, and to reduce the width of regular parking spaces from 10 to 9 feet in order to develop a site with a 68,000 square foot warehouse building in the M1 Limited Manufacturing Zoning District, and the staff report is submitted into the record.
Very good.
Any questions?
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions to city staff from the board?
Nope.
There being none, thank you very much. Does the applicant wish to speak on this variance?
Not necessarily, sir. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Well, would you please come up and, in case the board has any questions, state your name and address for the record?
My name's Chris Weddle. I'm the engineer for the project for Aurora Civil Engineering, and my office is in Brandon, Florida.
Okay. Okay, and in that case, does anybody have any questions to the
Yeah, I have, I guess, some general questions. So I want to say this is one of a handful of vacant sites, industrial sites in the city. And I want to say this is a property that's been advertised for sale a few times. Just being in real estate, that's something that I've recognized. And so I don't think there's surrounding or neighboring partners or businesses. I think it's all pretty much wetland. So as far as the height, I don't have any concerns with that. I guess my question would be two questions. One was the existing pond. That's going to be relocated during development, or that's staying put?
It's staying in place.
Okay. And then the height, is that for the, end user, or is that maybe more like tilt wall construction, just making it more feasible?
The clear height affects what users will rent the space, because they like to put things on racks and they like to go higher than they used to. So that's
Right.
why they want to do the 30-foot clear height inside.
Okay. So it's more like, I think it was
It's
stated more
to
modern.
make it a marketable building.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions for the applicant?
Thank you. That's good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that wishing to speak in favor of this request? There being none? Is anyone in the audience in opposition to this request? There being none? The floor is now closed. Can I have a motion on this request? And being we're going to do the request, and there's 5 different items, we're going to do each one individually. Okay? Okay, the first one being a motion on the request to increase the building height from 35 to 46.5 feet. May I have a motion on this request?
I'll make a motion to, are we just approving under the variance number, or just say that I'm approved? How do I answer that one?
I need just.
Make a motion to, make a motion to approve
It's a
that.
motion to approve the first one.
First, yes.
Not the.
I'll make a motion to approve the first one.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, there's been a motion and a section. Any discussion on this matter? Okay, there being none, roll call, please.
Board Member Swager,
Yes.
Board Member Steffensmeyer,
Yes.
Board Member Clark,
Yes.
Chair Brill.
Yes,
Motion passes 4-0.
thank you. Okay. The next variance is to reduce the width of ADA parking spaces from 15 feet to 12 feet. May I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion on the matter? There being none, may I have a roll call, please?
Board Member Swager,
Yes.
Board Member Steffensmeyer,
Yes.
Board Member Clark,
Yes.
Chair Brill.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, on the next one is reduce the number of ADA parking spaces from 7 to 6.
Make a motion to approve.
Second?
You gotta throw her off, huh?
Yeah.
Discussion on the matter?
Board Member Swager,
Yes.
Board Member Steffensmeyer,
Yes.
Board Member Clark,
Yes.
Chair Brill.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, the fourth one is reduce the number of regular parking spaces from 136 to 130.
You want this one?
All right.
May I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve?
I have a second.
I'll second, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Discussion? There being none? Roll call?
Board Member Swager,
Yes.
Board Member Steffensmeyer,
Yes.
Board Member Clark,
Yes.
Chair Brill.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes 4-0.
Thank you. Okay, reduce the regular width of parking spaces from 10 feet to 9 feet. Make a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to accept.
There we go, we got one.
Second?
Okay, discussion? There being none?
Board Member Swager,
Yes.
Board Member Steffensmeyer,
Yes.
Board Member Clark,
Yes.
Chair Brill.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
anything, height.
Oh, one thing on this one.
Okay, this is all these, yeah.
Hello, sir.
Good evening. Can I go ahead and start? or-
Yes, okay, I didn't know how you wanted to start it. Yeah, we have a reading of variance. What's variance number?
It's 2407.
2407, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Matt Jackson, Planning and Redevelopment Department. The agenda item before you is for variance 2407 for 301 Commerce Boulevard. The subject property is located on the east side of Commerce Boulevard, approximately 265 feet south of Volmer Avenue, and it's developed with two buildings used for manufacturing and storage. Property has a zoning designation of M1 and a future land use designation of Industrial Limited. Part of the background here, in 2001, a site plan was approved for a 42,000 square foot building addition. And during the approval process, the applicant obtained a parking variance, reducing the number of parking spaces from 569 to 233. And then in June 19, 2012, a plat was approved for the northern lot and for the southern lot. It's important to note, and in June 27, 2012, for the northern lot, there was a reduction of off-street parking spaces from 283 spaces to 96 spaces, again, for that northern lot. The applicant now is requesting approval to construct 4,924 square feet of interior second-floor office area on that northern lot. The additional floor area requires 10 parking spaces. The proposed floor area is for an updated office space for existing employees. It's important to note that at this time, no additional employees are considered, and a variance is requested for the additional 10 parking spaces. So the variance was reviewed against the 10 conditions outlined in Land Development Code Section 3.17.3. Go over a few of those. The special circumstances or conditions applying to the structure or premises in the question are peculiar to the structure premises and do not generally apply to other structures or premises in the vicinity. Again, on June 27, 2012, a variance was granted for the northern lot, reducing the number of parking spaces from 283 to 96. The justification for the variance included the business's use of large manufacturing equipment, which limited the number of employees. For the current variance request, although additional floor area is proposed, it's going to be used as updated office building for the existing employees, with no plans for additional employees to occupy the building. The granting of the application is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of the property right and does not merely serve as convenience for the applicant. The variance request is solely necessitated by the additional floor area and will allow an established business to continue operations with an updated office for its employees. The request is not the result of an action by the applicant beforehand, and the variance requested is the minimum variance that would make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structures. So the variance request again represents the minimum modification necessary to allow reasonable use of the land, building, structure, and the applicant is seeking this variance solely for the interior second floor office area for existing employees with no changes to the site. The request is not based on the applicant's desire to secure a greater financial return. The request is motivated by the intent to provide that updated office area, and the granting of the variance will not be detrimental or injurious to other property or improvements in the neighborhood of which the property is located. Approving the parking variance will have no noticeable effect, as the additional floor area is for existing employees and does not require additional parking spaces for the continued operation of the business. In summary, the application will allow the continued operation of the established manufacturing business in a manner consistent with the development pattern of the surrounding area meeting all 10 conditions for a variance. As such, based on the application meeting LDC section 3.17.3, staff recommends approval for the reduction in the number of regular parking spaces from 106 to 96 in the M1 Limited Manufacturing District for an existing manufacturing business, and the staff report is submitted for the record. This time, this concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Well, that kind of took my question about it. Does the board have any questions of the staff?
I've got one. So if this gets approved, and is that still adequate parking? Should they sell the business and someone further down the track, and in 5 years' time, somebody says, who the hell approved this?
It will
I'm just looking at it from that perspective.
Absolutely. Any change of use would automatically require a whole full review of the use of the property. But let's just say someone came in for like a call center. Absolutely, then we would look at that and move forward accordingly with additional parking, variance, whatever we would have to do at that time.
Right, okay.
Good question.
Any other questions to staff? Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Okay, does the applicant wish to speak on this variance?
No, sir.
Does not?
I'll speak on it.
Or if you please come center, state your name and address for the record.
Brooke Massey, 301 Commerce Boulevard.
Okay, prior to speaking, are you speaking in favor or against?
In favor.
Okay, that'll drop down. Let me drop down to the, okay, we'll just get to that. You may go stay up there anyway, so, okay. Okay, because that was it. Does the applicant, anybody wishing to speak in favor? And now, state your name and record.
Brooke Massey, my metals. I just wanted to address his question about, if the business was to ever change hands. We've been out there for 40 years, and I don't recognize any of you guys here, but I've been in this community for over 20 years and would welcome you to come out there at any time and see what we do. But that business didn't go anywhere, and if you were to move that business, you'd be looking at tearing everything down and reconstructing it. The manufacturing equipment that we have out there requires very few employees, so 96 parking spots is way more than what we need. Just wanted to say that, because it could be a concern. I get it if you were to ever want to redo something else out there, but that equipment is not going anywhere.
Right.
So,
Thank you. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak in opposition of this request? There being none, the floor is now closed. May I have a motion on this request?
Make a motion to approve?
Second?
Discussion? There being none?
Board Member Swalger,
Yes.
Board Member Steffensmeyer,
Yes.
Board Member Clark,
Yes.
Chair Brill.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay. Now, if I could have a reading of variance 2408, please.
Good evening again, Matt Jackson. The item before you is variance 2408 for 805 Blandon Road. The subject property is developed with a single-family home located approximately 60 feet north of the northeast intersection of Blandon Road and Bengal Circle. The home is within a neighborhood of single-family homes, many containing backyard amenities like a pool and deck. The property has a zoning designation of R2, single-family district, and the R2 zoning district maximum lot coverage is 50%. This is an aerial view of the subject property, showing in the area around the property, including the fact that there are many homes in the area with pools and decks. So on their screen on the left-hand side, you will see the site as is. On the right is a site plan showing the pool and deck area, and it's on the rear east side of the home. The purpose of the variance request is to increase the maximum lot coverage from 50% to 54% to construct the pool and deck for the single-family home in the zoning district. Again, the variance was reviewed against Land Development Code, Section 3.17.3. I'm going to read a few of the criteria into the record. The special circumstances or conditions applying to the structure or premises in question are peculiar to such structure or premises and do not generally apply to other structures or premises in the vicinity. The subject property is approximately 7,000 square feet and is currently developed with a single-family residence. The existing survey shows 49% lot coverage, including the home, driveway, walkway, and the air conditioning and concrete pads. The variance requested is a minimum variance that would make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structures. The application includes the addition of 240 square feet of impervious surface, the pool deck on the rear east side of the home, which will increase the lot coverage to 53%. The applicant has requested a lot coverage of 54%, which staff supports to accommodate a pad for mechanical equipment and any minor adjustments to the proposed pool deck layout. The pool deck addition requires only the requested lot coverage increase with no other variances requested, such as setbacks for this amenity, very typical for a single-family home. The granting of the variance will not be detrimental or injurious to other property or improvements in the neighborhood in which the property is located. Granting the variance will result in construction of a screen porch, a typical amenity to homes in the neighborhood. Summary, the application includes a pool and deck addition like multiple homes in the surrounding neighborhood, meeting all 10 conditions. Based on the application meeting, Land Development Code Section 317.3, staff recommends approval of the variance request to increase the maximum lot coverage from 50 to 54% to construct a pool and deck for single-family residents in the R2 zoning district. Staff report is submitted for the record. This time, this concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. I did have one question on this. Basically, the drawing that you had sent to us on there, it looks like all the properties on these lines are on the other people's lots. Is that just a misprint or?
So one of the reasons for that is when the literally planes flying overhead are shooting our photographs where the lines are going to go, it can be skewed a little bit. So that, what you're looking at right there, that photo right there, is not exactly where the property lines are, no.
Okay.
You have to look at the survey for that.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess that was one of my main questions, because it actually looks like the property at 202 is encroaching upon her property.
I've been fielding that question for the better part of 2 decades. Yeah, it's a good question, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So
Like
the-
when you look at the property appraiser, those same lines, those aren't exactly where the property lines are.
Okay,
You
so
have to look at the survey.
the screenshot that you had on number 2 on our shot
Correct.
was actual, the true to,
Correct.
the one prior to that, 1 or 2 prior to that.
So this is where the survey is shown, where the actual property lines are shown.
Okay.
Before that, the aerial view, it's the same instance what you just showed me.
Okay, yeah, because on that one, they look like they're aligned or,
Correct. It's
okay,
skewed.
yeah, I do see they're a
Yes. good
little
question.
skewed, and it's like everybody's property's on somebody else's.
Right. It does appear that way, absolutely.
Which, yeah. So, some of the property did have that, like over in Harbor Palms, they had quite a few peoples on other people's property
Gotcha.
and stuff like
That
that.
happens as
A
well.
little bit of confusion over there.
Right, absolutely.
I have no questions, no other questions. Okay, does anybody on staff have any questions to the?
No.
No?
Thank you.
Thank you. Does the applicant wish to speak on this item? They do not. Okay, thank you. Okay. Anybody in the audience wish to speak in favor of this request? There being none. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak in opposition to this request? There being none. The floor is now closed. May I have a motion of this request?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second?
Discussion? None? Thank you.
Board Member
Please.
Board Member Swager,
Yes.
Board Member Steffensmeyer,
Yes.
Board Member Clark,
Yes.
Chair Brill.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, prior to calling for adjournment, I believe our. I could have snuck it in there,
This
right?
is what you've all been waiting for. I know it.
2 months.
It's right, that's right.
Just to do the right thing.
Don't we all?
I simplify it, just,
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
just do the, I know it's hard for some of us, right, Matt? Okay. I don't know, I didn't get a preview, so I don't know. Oh, ain't that cute?
There's my girls and my dog.
There you
While I'm, something for you to look at while I get this going.
Okay.
Okay.
Commercial when he's gonna
You already have a
Little-
Christmas
little
tree.
holiday.
auditorium, he's doing
Yeah,
manicure.
little holiday stuff to soften us up.
That's
prior
right,
to-
just to get you ready. All right, so I've been asked to give you guys just a little overview. I'm not going to take long, so it's going to be a review for some of you, maybe the first time some of you have heard this. I'm new to this particular board, so I'm not sure what you've heard in the past, but it's just going to be a little overview about what a quasi-judicial process is, which is what you do here. You just did 3 of them, so you kind of already know what the process is, but just some highlights about what that is versus the legislative process, as well as some the requirements for your voting, to make sure that you understand those. So first, what's the difference between legislative and quasi-judicial? The legislative process is one in which policy is created by the legislative body, in this case, your city council. So for instance, you guys today were looking at section 3.17.3 of the Land Development Code. That's a policy that was something drafted and passed by ordinance by the city council. So those are the policies that you have. So in your situation, you turn to the quasi-judicial part of that. That is when you take the application of that policy to an actual factual situation, which is what you just did. You just heard a variance request by an applicant. You're given information and facts by your staff and your applicant, and you applied those facts to the criteria that's in your policy. So that's what your quasi-judicial process is. So the basis of your decisions are a little different when you have a legislative policy, a legislative decision versus a quasi-judicial decision. And this is one of the things that gets hard for people sometimes. Now, a legislative decision, they can take anything into account that they need to come to their decision. That could be public comment, public outrage, public liking. You don't get to do that. In a quasi-judicial forum, you don't get to look at the 20 people that are for and the 20 people against. You listen to them, you ask for their input. They can provide factual information that may help you make a decision, but just the popularity of it or the dislike of it, you're not to consider that. You're only supposed to look at the facts and the evidence that you're presented and apply it to the criteria that's in your policy. You're supposed to be looking for competent and substantial evidence. So I wanted to give you some definitions so you understood what that is. Competent means the person giving you the information is qualified. Clearly, you have 2 very competent people that came up here today and gave you information about the applicants and how those applications and their requests fit within the variance process and the criteria they need to meet to meet that request for the variance. Sometimes you have requests that, let's say, I know a very common one we see a lot, you'll have citizens come in, the development someone's proposing is going to just create havoc with traffic. It's going to cause too much traffic. Everything causes too much traffic. We already have too much traffic. We don't want more traffic. If someone's going to talk to you about traffic, they need to be an expert. They need to give you that competent evidence that they are qualified to actually talk about, here's the traffic study, and this is what this means, and here's how we figure out how many actual trips are going to happen because of this development. It wouldn't be competent evidence to listen to me even as a lawyer, because you know we know everything, even as a lawyer coming in to say, well, the traffic's just going to it's going to be too much traffic, you shouldn't do this. That wouldn't be competent evidence for that topic, because I'm not qualified, I'm not an expert in that topic. Now, that doesn't mean lay people can't come in here, like I mentioned a moment ago, and give you their opinion. I could come in and say, this gentleman lives on the street with me that's asking for this variance, I live on this street, and I have seen that every weather event we have, it floods. I don't need to be an expert to tell you that, I've seen that, and maybe that is important for whatever decision you're about to make. So lay people can definitely still come in and we want their input, we want to know what they're thinking, but sometimes they may come in and say, I just know that traffic is going to just be crazy because of this. That's something you wouldn't consider because they aren't qualified to do that. Substantial, this means you need to be enough. You need to have sufficient, relevant, and credible evidence in making your decision. And what you want to do is you want to obviously help the city move forward with what requests are being made, but you want to avoid an appeal. And so what you're trying to do is base your decision on the testimony and the facts that are presented, and you can use those and your common knowledge to make your decision, but don't look at anything else outside of that. We always ask, don't go look at the place yourself, don't go investigate on your own. You only want to what you're provided here and the information you're given here to help you make that decision. So you might still get appealed, but at least your record will be clear that you based your decision on the proper thing, which would be the quality, persuasiveness, and relevancy of the testimony that was presented and how those apply to those factors within your policy. Next is voting. Voting there's a statutory mandate that each one of you vote every time you come in here, unless there's certain situations where you don't. So this is Florida Statute 286.012, says that no member of any municipal government body who is present at any meeting of any such body at which an official decision, ruling, or other official act is to be taken or adopted may abstain from voting in regard to such decision, ruling, or act, and a vote shall be recorded or counted for each member present, except when, with respect to such member, there is or appears to be a possible conflict of interest under some statutory provisions. I want to point out, however, that under that same statute, it says if you're dealing with a quasi-judicial proceeding, a member may abstain from voting to assure a fair proceeding is free from potential bias or prejudice. So a legislative situation, they don't have that little caveat, but you guys do have one little extra thing that if you feel like the proceeding will be fair and free from potential bias and prejudice, you may abstain from voting. And we'll get into that a little bit more here. There are some other legal exceptions, those statutory numbers that were just in that last section. This is basically what it's saying. There's a couple of them out there, but to kind of bring them down to a summary, it's basically telling you that no municipal public officer shall vote in an official capacity upon a measure that would inure to his or her special private gain or loss, so you personally, or the special private gain or loss to any principal by whom you are retained, or the parent organization or subsidiary of a corporate principal by which you are retained. Or if you know that decision could result in the special private gain or loss to a relative or a business associate. So there's really only a couple situations that you refrain from voting. Otherwise, you're legally required to do it. What's not a legal exception, which is the hardest part of your job, and any job of anybody on a board or legislative body, in my opinion, is it's not about, this is uncomfortable, I know that person, I see them in the grocery store every time I go and they're gonna talk to me, so I really don't wanna be part of this. I go to my kids' school or my grandkids' school and I see this person every time I go to that event at the school. Those aren't reasons to not vote. You have a legal duty to vote, and unfortunately deal with that situation and that relationship moving forward should you not grant them something they're asking for. It mentioned in the times you can abstain from voting that if the vote would benefit a relative, that's defined by statute. Different portions of our statute define relative different, so that's why I included this list here. You may have seen a relative definition connected to something else, and I wanted you to know that in this situation, it's just these 12 people. Obviously, there's more relatives for us out there. So if my uncle came in, I'm good. So it just depends on who the relative is, whether you have to worry about it. So that's the list for this voting issue, who you would abstain for. There's also something to be considered if you belong to a class of people, and it's not just you individually. When I see this the most is it's your neighborhood. Something's happening in your neighborhood, should you vote on it? I've seen where something is, like an ordinance is being changed to change what's allowed under a zoning classification. And you may own property that's under that zoning classification. So do a lot of other people. So when it's not just you, and yep, that's my daughter that might benefit from this. My wife's part of the company that would benefit from this. If it's a bigger thing, well, I live in that neighborhood, it might benefit my neighborhood. That's something we need to talk through. It may or may not require a abstention from voting. The things we look at is the size of the class, the nature of the interest of the class, the degree to which interest of all the members are affected, and the degree of benefit or harm when compared to the other members of the class. So that's to be very fact specific. So we'll talk through that should that ever become an issue. And here's how you're going to handle your voting conflicts. Read your agenda as soon as you get it. And I know different cities are different. Some you get, this one we've had a couple months, I think, so you've had plenty of time to look at it. But sometimes you get it a week in advance, sometimes you get it the day before, depending on what's going on with the city and them getting their documentation together. But read the agenda as soon as you get a chance to. And if you see something on there that you think to yourself, this may be an issue, you call me. I'm happy to talk to you right before the meeting, and then we can do that always, but it's always better if we can talk ahead of time, so we have time to really look at the facts and figure it out. So that we're not rushing and trying to make a decision, so it just gives everybody time to figure out what we need to do and make the proper decision to move forward. If it's decided that you're going to abstain, you're gonna come to the meeting, you're gonna sit where you're sitting, you're gonna announce that you're abstaining, you're gonna explain why you're abstaining, and then you're gonna fill out a form that the clerk has that will be submitted with the state, and that's required by law. And what I'm gonna ask you to do after that is when that matter comes up, you're gonna come down. Just get off the dock, get away. Just come sit out here, or go to the bathroom, go get a drink. That way that you're out of it, the appearance of you not being involved, you're just gone. And then once that matter is complete, you go back up there and go back to work. All right, that was all I had, just a quick overview of those 2 items. Do you have any questions?
I have a ton.
Well, you can hit me now, or
Y'all probably know why, but let's say it's a neighborhood issue,
okay,
okay?
neighborhood issue, yeah,
I'm on the board.
yep,
The person is filing to do something. He's not gonna be honest about it, but I know this.
right,
The board won't.
right, okay, so, and
But yeah,
that,
it affects me personally.
well,
Do I
is it gonna,
Wouldn't you be one of the people that would be voting
Speaking against it,
yeah.
yes.
So I think that might come down more to, let me get back to the slide here.
Or can I speak against it and still be on the board and vote?
You would, no. So,
Curses, foiled again. I mean, I'm only asking because it's gonna happen.
all right, so, and again, this might be something better that you and I talk about.
Sure.
Away from the world, so we can talk specifics about what we're talking about. But first, whatever is being asked for would have to, for you to, under first scenario, for you to not vote, would need to have a special private gain or loss to you, a family member. So that we'd have to look at that. Just because it's something you don't like, that may not qualify as a special private gain or loss. So let's just assume it doesn't. So the next step becomes the one caveat I mentioned. I think I went too far.
Sorry to hold you all up.
Hey, no,
Right.
it's
The one caveat, the
we gotta know
however, look under the however. If you're abstaining, would perhaps promote the appearance that there's no bias or prejudice involved. I don't know if this person that we're talking about knows your feelings and they already know this is going to be an issue. It
Oh,
might be
yes.
best that you, yes, it may not benefit you privately, personally, the private special gain or loss, but you maybe just shouldn't be part of it. You're too close. So you would abstain and remove yourself from voting. Whether you want to come up and speak, you are a citizen, you can do as you wish. Okay, but you would probably want to abstain, but you would explain why.
Sure.
You'd go through the
And-
same
and
process.
We'll talk when
Yeah.
it happens,
Yes,
if
so,
it
yeah,
happens. I
so
mean,
but that sounds like something you and I need to talk through. Yes, definitely.
Yes.
So that would go to that last slide. Call me, and we'll figure out what the best course of
Put you
action
on
is.
speed dial.
Yeah, yes, that's right. All right, anything else? And again, I'm here every meeting. They have my number. You can call if you come up with something as you move forward that you want to question or ask about. I'm always around.
The question I had is like, okay, Oldsmar is a small city.
Yes.
Okay, and he says we shouldn't shouldn't view properties.
Right. Well, you're going to. Right.
We're going to. Well, yeah.
It's an impossible ask that
It's
we
an
ask.
impossible act. It's like, okay, I'm going to drive by this house.
Yep. It's an impossible ask that we ask every board that we represent to do. Please go around with blinders on, don't look at anything, don't talk to anybody. You're not going to do that, and we recognize that. And that's the one
does
slide
it
mentioned.
become
You
now-
can, common knowledge. I mean, you guys know something, I'm going to try to think of something. Is there a McDonald's
mean,
or Wendy's? There's
I
a fast food restaurant across the road. You all know where that is. You know it's the Wendy's or McDonald's or whatever. So if someone comes in here and talks about it, you can't act like you don't know it. You know what it is. You've been there. So that's your knowledge. That's common knowledge. Everyone has it. You're going to use that. What you want to avoid is, let's use the last variant you had for the pool. I'm not sure about that. So let me go to that house, walk around the back, check it. No, you don't want to go do your investigation. That's the kind of thing we're trying to avoid. Just let them bring it to you. Let them bring you the information you need. And if you don't have the information you need, you say no and let them try again.
Okay,
So
yeah, go ahead.
that's
So
what-
there was, I said, there's many times you go around, you know
Yeah.
what they're doing or not.
Right.
And it's just like,
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
sitting there,
It's really just try to avoid any overt, let me go investigate this request
okay.
above and beyond what's being presented to me. Because you really, again, common knowledge, things you know, you're gonna know. We can't ask you not to know what you know. But then, other than that, keep it to what's presented to you during these proceedings before you make your vote. And base your vote on that.
So basically, don't go out there and view the property prior to
Yeah,
voting on
you
it.
try not to. I've actually been in hearings where I have people go on their phone and start researching.
During
No, right? That's not being presented to you. It's something you don't already, that's not common knowledge to all of you. Oh, I'll share it with them. No, you don't get to do it that way. So it's just keep it to what you already know, and if you happen to know about a particular property and the way that property is set up and the issues on that property, then you know that. But just try to keep it focused to what, excuse me, what staff and the applicant bring to you.
Okay.
Okay? Yes.
And I may be getting ahead of you here, I don't know what's next, but you had mentioned you want to avoid an appeal.
Yes.
What is the appeal?
Well, so if someone, you
Don't
usually,
pass,
you
yeah.
usually only have an appeal when you say no, right? Because someone wanted something and you say no. So they have a right to appeal that decision if they feel that you are incorrect and that you did not, maybe they think, oh, no, they went outside the facts presented at the hearing and they made a policy decision and it wasn't really based on the facts and the criteria of should they or should they not get a variance. They can appeal that, and the record of what the court will look at will be all that stuff that they stand up here and read to you. The reason they do that and they say, I submit this report as part of the record, that's what will go to the court. So the court will see the record that was presented. If the applicant presents anything, they can see that. I think your agendas most do tell individuals if you might want an appeal, if you want a transcript of this, it's on them to get the transcript, to provide the court word for word what was said, to help the court make that decision. So that's the record the court would look at, the report, the testimony, and then the court has the law. They would see, okay, here's the criteria for a variance in Oldsmar. Here's the factual information testimony that was given. The board approved it and said, ABC, this is why they approved it. Okay, that was legitimate. That's based on the facts presented and it fits within the criteria. Then the appeal, the city's successful. If it gets to the court and they look at the record and they find that the board, excuse me, chose to deny a request because, well, you know what, we really just don't like you. Sorry, you know, you're buying the whole town up, you're developing everywhere, we don't want you to keep developing. That's not gonna work, right? You didn't stick to the facts presented and apply them to the criteria of the ordinance. So that would be reversed and we would get to start over. But you're not gonna do that because I'm here to also help keep you focused. And that's why I sit there. You know, I sit there, a lot of the meetings that we go to as board attorneys, we don't talk a lot. We show up, we sit there, and then we leave. Most of our work's done behind the scenes, but that's all I'm doing is to make sure the process is being followed and you're not up there on your phone doing your own research and trying to share it with your fellow board members because that would not be competent substantial evidence that you could rely on. So that's our purpose, and to make sure everybody in the process gets their moment to speak.
Are we protected? Say they take it to the judge and he decides we're at fault and whatever, and he decides to issue fine against the board for,
It would just, so the board would have denied the request. It would be a remand of that decision to come back and grant it.
No chance the
Or
person
to
can
rehear
sue you
it.
for
no,
it?
no,
No,
okay.
not,
Sure.
not for that, not for that. No, there's plenty the four of you could do, I'm sure, to get yourselves in personal trouble. But no, your decision sitting as a board, if it's determined that you did something that the court thought was incorrect, that's part of the process. And there's obviously attorney's fees and that kind of stuff that's involved. That's something the city and the applicant deal with. That's not something they would come to you to deal with. I will tell you, not to scare you, that it's very, very common when these appeals happen that they name people personally, but we address that and it's against the city. So don't
Well,
worry
if I
about that.
step down from that particular one, they can't name me anyway.
Right.
Because I'm not.
Well, now you're still stuck on that one. You're not going to be near that one. The one that we're going to worry about that. We're going to have you off of that. I have a feeling, so we don't have to worry
Okay,
about
but I
that.
do have one more question,
Okay.
and I'll stop. So I step down, I go out and I speak against it. The board says no.
Right.
He appeals it, goes
Right.
whatever. What if that person produces false information to the board, these guys?
So an applicant comes forth and brings false information, and the board denies the application.
And they try to appeal it,
The appeal will be based on the record only. I don't know that I've ever had that. So the record would have information that you would allegedly say is incorrect.
yes.
But I'm assuming
And I'll bring proof
it's,
here.
that's again, it's
I know,
very,
it's getting
yeah, it's
deep,
very
I'm sorry.
factual. So it would depend, because you may have an applicant providing information, but you also have the city providing their position.
Sure, but the
So-
city doesn't know that
Yeah,
this is
okay.
wrong.
Well, maybe citizens should let the city know things before it gets that far. That's all I'm saying. Everyone can call and talk to people. They can provide their input. So, but yeah, you and I will talk a lot, I think.
Thank you.
Sounds like we're gonna talk a lot.
And I'm done.
Get her card.
I know, I'm gonna put it down, I'm gonna look up this 3.1713 too. Or 3.
I had one,
Yeah.
maybe just procedural, general question. I didn't know when else to ask it. In the few years I've been involved with this board, I've yet to see something that staff did not recommend approval for.
Right.
And that's probably by design, I'd
I
imagine.
would guess, and my staff is here, obviously, they can answer any questions that, or add anything to this. I will tell you, in my experience, that is usually because when applicants realize that staff does not agree, they don't want to go forward.
Okay.
Because they realize that most likely they're not gonna, there's a reason they're not agreeing. You know, if you don't meet, for a variance, you don't meet the criteria, your code clearly says you have to meet them all. Some cities don't have, you have to meet them all. Some cities say you have to meet some, or a couple, or the majority. Yours says these must be met. So if staff says you don't meet them, they know that staff's gonna say no, and they usually don't wanna take that chance. Sometimes you will see things go forward. I haven't here, so I've only been to a few meetings with you, and what you're telling me, that doesn't usually happen. But the majority of the time,
I've been up here when someone voted.
Some.
They said nay,
yeah,
so.
No, meaning like the staff
Staff
recommended
recommendation.
Oh.
that you
Yeah.
did not approve.
would that be
Is that-
accurate?
It
It's
actually has
usually-
worked out.
Yeah, and a lot of times the applicant, when they first come to the city, they ask for A. City staff's like, maybe A is not gonna work, and they work it out, and then they end up asking for B, and then everything works out. They kind of work together to get to the, staff's role, and they can completely correct me if I'm wrong here, is to help that applicant get what they need if they can, right? Within the rules and the parameters of the code. So they may come in and say, I want to build this manufacturing, a building for manufacturing, and these are all the things I want to do. And staff's going to go, well, you can do A, B, C, but not D and E, and let's figure out what you can do. And that's how it usually, by the time it gets to you, it's kind of all worked out. But there are times that people say, staff, I don't agree with you, and I'm going forward. So, and that's when it makes your job harder when
We
those
had
come.
one of
You
those?
should like these, like when everyone's on the
Have
same
we had
page.
one of those?
I don't,
I have.
Yeah.
I've been on this like 30 years.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, there's always going to be some,
so yes, we have had it both ways. We had staff denied the request, but we have approved it. Okay, because we thought it actually fit
Yeah.
within the guidelines. It was really, close or whatever. But then the other ones, like I said, like I said, they approved it and we denied it. So it has worked both ways.
Yeah.
So there's no, it doesn't happen very often,
interesting.
maybe a half dozen times since I've been on the board, but,
It'll happen next month now.
next
you
month.
probably just
Thought we'd get
jinxed-
two of
you
them
probably just
covered.
jinxed yourself, right?
But, yeah,
Yourself, yeah.
but it has happened, but happened rarely, and, since I've been on the board, I believe there's only been 2 appeals to the city or whatever,
Yeah.
and,
It's
they,
rare.
they overruled us, so.
It does happen,
It-
and I'll,
it happens.
I will tell you a secret that I happen to be married to a circuit court judge, and he's been reversed, and no one likes it. No one likes someone else to look at what they've done and say, you did something wrong. But all we can do, this is what I tell him too when he comes home upset, all you can do is your best. And at that time, with what you're given and the time frame within which you get to make a decision, sometimes you're gonna go one way and someone's gonna tell you, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have done that. And there's no fault in that. Just do our best. Yeah. Anything else? All right, again, you can find me, you can call me. You definitely sound like you need to call me at some point when it's primed to get going. If not, I'll just see you guys at the next meeting. Okay?
Great, thank you very
You're
much.
very welcome.
Okay, call for an adjournment of the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Somebody. Okay.
All set.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried all. Thank you very much.